Could the way you breathe actually be why you have low back pain, chronic pain, maybe high blood pressure, maybe headaches, not sleeping well, anxiety?
There was a recent study that showed that 91% of athletes that were tested did not have a diaphragm relaxing and contracting fully. And what people don't realize is the diaphragm is not just a breathing muscle, it's the number one pump of your body's entire lymphatic system. And when that lymph gets congested, you don't have those fats for energy, for vitality, for good skin, for your hormones, so you go on HRT and you have a host of health concerns as a result of that. We have newly discovered the brain's lymph and lymphatic systems that dump 3 pounds of trash out of your head every year while you sleep. So the lymphatic system is taking trash out. EPO at Lance Armstrong got busted for injecting. You make your own when you hold your breath. Transcription factor is called the guardian of your genome that protect your genes from expressing those genetic traits that happen to all of us as we age. What I'm going to teach you guys, just 5 minutes a day. I mean, you can do more for sure, but at the least, just do 5 minutes.
Your life will change. Can we do it in bed?
Actually, you can do it in bed.
Oh man, forget it. You guys are set. Could the way you breathe actually be why you have low back pain, chronic pain, maybe high blood pressure, maybe headaches, not sleeping well, anxiety? All right, this next guest is going to teach you how to breathe. Oh, better yet, how to separate your diaphragm literally from your rib cage. Sounds gruesome, it's not, but literally that can transform everything about your health, something so simple. We're going to learn about the lymphatic system in a whole different way. Yeah, it ties into your breathing, but this ties into every aspect of your health. So if you are interested in how your body naturally detox, okay, that's a big subject that I'm interested in. Stay tuned. And also, how to vary your diet. One of my topics, right? Well, what about Ayurvedic medicine? Well, this guy is the expert right here. Dr. John Douillard, thank you for being here. I am so excited about this topic. I can't wait. You're going to teach us what my wife desperately needs, right? But I think everybody needs this. You've actually taught some of the top athletes in the world.
Yeah.
Tennis player, what was her name?
Billie Jean King, Martina.
Billie Jean King. Yeah. I mean, all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the top runners, some of the top athletes, Olympians, how this strategy that you're going to learn, and it transformed literally their performance and obviously their health, right? So, I mean, you're well known. I mean, you are. This is big stuff here.
Well, you know, there was a recent study that showed that 91% of athletes that were tested did not have a diaphragm relaxing and contracting fully. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is the diaphragm is not just a breathing muscle. It's the number one pump of your body's entire lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system, which is the largest circulatory system in your body, is trying to do 3 major things. Take out the trash, detoxify every cell of your body,
that's right,
carry your immune system, and deliver fat as baseline energy to every cell of your body. And those fats are the precursors to your hormones.
Yes.
And when that lymph gets congested, you don't have those fats for energy, for vitality, for good skin, for your hormones. So you go on HRT and you have a host of health concerns as a result of that. And with 91% of athletes not having a diaphragm relaxing and contracting fully, and every time we get stressed out, we breathe a little different. And then that breathing becomes normal to us. And then another stress comes along, we breathe again. And the rib cage gets getting tighter and tighter and
shallower and shallower breathing.
And then you lose not only rib cage elasticity, but you lose diaphragmatic function, you lose the pump of your lymphatic system. And from the Ayurvedic medicine perspective, the study of the lymphatic system was the study of longevity. They had a whole branch thousands of years ago for longevity. And the key was, how well do you take the trash out? That's your lymphatic system. Mm-hmm. How well do you carry your immune system? That's your lymph. How well do you deliver, fat as energy to every cell of your body? And that's what the only time we hear about the lymph in Western medicine is when you get cancer and we start taking stuff out. But what I do is I kind of dig into the ancient wisdom and the modern science. And there's just volumes of articles buried in the medical journals. None of it's in medical practice, directly linking the lymphatic system and lymphatic congestion to aging. Wow. It's all there, but not in practice. But thousands of years ago, they put it into practice. Yeah. So I kind of try to bring that to light.
One of the things that we see all the time, the doctors I train, the practitioners that I train, is that people have a lot of hidden infections, right? Cavitations, things are going on in the mouth, low-grade infections that you really don't show up on blood work typically, but it really puts a great stress on their lymphatic system, and everything then becomes hard. It becomes hard to detox them. So that's why one of the things I'm excited about, right? Because I know that there's this connection of opening up that lymphatic channel. And so every one of my doctors, practitioners, you better watch this episode because we're going to learn it because I know it really, the more that I started studying this, this could be the missing link for many people. And I said that in the opening and I really mean it.
It's what the researchers
transform people.
The researchers are actually calling it the missing piece.
Yeah. Okay.
In the biology of aging. You mentioned something really interesting. There was a psychiatric hospital in the early 1900s run by a medical doctor named James Cotton. And he was world famous. And people would send all their sort of nutty relatives to him, and he would cut infected parts out. He would cut out fingers and teeth and toes and ovaries. Anything that was infected, he'd take it out. They get better, send them back. 100 years later, now we know that when you take all that infection out, just what you just said, the lymphatic system can now move. We have newly discovered the brain's lymph and lymphatic systems that dump 3 pounds of trash out of your head every year while you sleep.
Really quick, the lymphatic system.
Yeah.
You just quickly said that, but explain that because that's going to go on in this conversation. It needs to be explained.
So the lymphatic system is taking trash out. Your cerebral spinal fluid is a fluid that pumps the lymphatic system. But deep in the brain, there's a glymphatic system, which is the same exact thing. It's just a different kind of lymph system because it's not just only lymph vessels. They couldn't find it until about 15 years ago.
I know. It wasn't that long ago that they saw the lymph just doesn't affect the brain. It's not, drained like the rest of the body wrong.
And here's what it was. Here's the artery, right? You have blood coming in and they can see the blood coming in for hundreds of years. Now we've known that. But there was a little sleeve on the outside of that, on the artery that the lymph would come out.
Oh, wow.
So it was like a double layer kind of vessel. So they didn't see it for forever until recently. But Ayurvedic medicine talked about this thousands of years ago. And the studies show now that congestion of that system, which is linked to poor breathing, is directly linked to anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, inflammation, infection, and autoimmune concerns, where the master computer, which you can't take its trash out, doesn't know how many fire trucks to send to the immune event somewhere in your body. So it sends too many or too little. And that's what we have in our...
And that's why in the opening, I said your anxiety, your sleep, right? Because I know this connection of the lymphatic system in the brain and how it affects the brain. And when it's not draining, we're going to have problems. Ayurvedic medicine, I mentioned it, you mentioned it, and we're going to keep mentioning it. So you better put a little definition around that.
So Ayurveda, Ayur means life, Veda means science or truth. So it was a 5,000-year-old system of medicine based on an in-depth study of nature. They talked about circadian rhythms thousands of years ago. They talked about the microbiome. They can't see these invisible bugs, but they talked about the fact that they were there 1,000 years ago. And it was a system of medicine that was teaching us how to live in harmony with the natural cycles, right? So we have... talk about diets for a second, but diets change constantly. But when you just think about
we're gonna get there.
Every ancestor on the planet, for everyone, they ate what was coming out of the ground in season. And now we have science to show that the bugs in the soil change from season to season. The bugs in the food that we eat, if we eat it organic and in season, getting the right bugs to inoculate your gut in that season. These bugs, it's like if I took all the bugs out of you, right, sterilize you with insecticides and pesticides, you'd be a different human being because of the psychobiotic effect. But if I take all the bugs out of my food, which we've done, then we have a situation where we've lost the intelligence of the plant or even the herb or the supplement you're taking. Most of them are just sterile. So the idea is to recognize that the food and its microbiome create the whole package. Just like that creates our whole package. And that's what we have to restore. And that changes from season to season. Stanford research showed that the Hadza tribe, the hunter-gatherer tribe, their gut bugs changed from season to season. They ate seasonal food.
Absolutely.
It's not rocket science.
And we're going to talk about that because I've taught diet variation for many years. very rare in our space that people say, what's the perfect diet, right? Is it paleo? Is it vegan, plant-based? I mean, everyone go down the list, right? Keto. And I'm like, no, diet change is the key. Because again, I mean, studying ancient cultures, nature, things change. We're going to get there because that's a really important topic. You have a whole book on it.
Yeah.
The 3-season diet. And like I said, that maybe that's how someone ended up connecting us, because they're like, yeah, someone else talks about this, right? But you know, that whole thing of the Ayurvedic, I call it Ayurvedic medicine. I mean, that's a term that someone coined long ago and I just stuck with it, Ayurveda. But, you know, it really is just the study of nature and study of what we know. And one of my guests said this recently. They said, you know, if your scientific study contradicts common sense in what happens in nature, redo the study because it's wrong. Yeah. You know, meaning like, we can look at all the science in the world. But if it doesn't go with this, then, you know, there's something absolutely wrong. However, this breathing, let's remain on this topic before we leave it. The lymphatic connection, the breathing, separating, I said this at the top of the show, separating the diaphragm from the ribs. What does that even mean? You know, but, you know, we can look at all of this ancient medicine and wisdom, but really there's a ton of modern day research that shows that nose breathing, simply shifting someone, you wrote a book about this, shifting someone from mouth breathing to nose breathing literally can transform their health in multiple ways, because this is all linked that we just said.
100%. Okay. You know, we did a study, published it in the International Journal of Neuroscience. That was the theme of my Body, Mind, Sport book. And we found that when we had about 25 high school athletes, and they did a workout on a bike, 200 watts of resistance, pretty intense. And they did it with mouth breathing, came back the next day, did it with nose breathing, and vice versa. Now,
I was a cyclist.
Yeah.
I tried to nose breathe. In the moment it would get hard, like really hard, I couldn't do it, bro.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, because I've been teaching this for decades now, be prepared to suffocate.
Okay.
You know,
that's what it felt like.
But it's going to take 3 weeks. You got to give it 3 weeks.
I didn't give enough time.
Yeah,
I just thought, okay, it's great until I get really out of breath. Then I have to use my mouth.
Because I was wrong. The rib cage becomes a cage. If you keep breathing shallow like that, the rib cage gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Yeah. And it takes a while to get that.
So you've trained professional cyclists.
Yeah.
Long distance runners, but cyclists, because you have these super high intensity, you've trained them to completely stay in their nose.
John Weissenreiter was a dear friend of mine. He was one of my first, cases or athletes I worked with. He was the #1 mountain bike rider, maybe the world. I think for sure in America. John Weissenreiter. It was a while, many years ago.
No. I know the name. Yeah. When I raced mountain bikes, that was nice.
That was his time, and he was a nose breather. He was all into it. So you can do it. That doesn't mean that you never open your mouth. That's not the issue. It's just that if you don't have full respiratory efficiency and you're breathing like a rabbit, shallow breathing, 26,000 breaths per day, and you don't know it, that's a problem. I was coming into a restaurant about 1.5 years ago, and a couple of elderly folks were coming out. They were like in their 80s or 90s. Their mouths were open. They were frail. They were having a hard time getting out. So I was helping them. And after that, I got them through the doors. I said, if someone would have told them, and we'll teach this, that they could breathe 5 minutes a day to strengthen their diaphragm, the research shows, buried in the medical journals, that if you strengthen your diaphragm, you can reverse your heartburn, GERD, reflux, and indigestion. Studies show it can actually lower your blood pressure I
said that at the top of the show, yeah.
In 3 minutes, as fast as the Western medications. Studies show that women with breast cancer have more congestion of the anterior diaphragmatic lymph nodes than the women who don't. The diaphragm is the #1 pump of the cerebrospinal fluid, which washes the 3 pounds of trash out of your head. So you were looking at these elderly folks, their cognitive decline is linked to not breathing. They're walking around like this. Their high blood pressure, their indigestion, their heartburn, their GERD, their arthritis. All these are lymphatic congestion because their lymphatic pump broke down. And this is not just ancient wisdom. This is literally buried in the medical journals. Nobody's looking at it because it's just buried there. And because there's no application. You can't put a needle in the lymph and say, oh, your blood sugar is low or your this is low. It's a moving target. Just like we are moving targets as humans, right? So it's a little harder to evaluate from the Western perspective, but the research is there. And that's what people need to start listening to.
I just had dinner last week with a gal. She was sitting at the table and she knew who I was, right? And so she asked me a question. She said, I have to ask you a question. I had terrible night vision and I took this class on how to breathe and nose breathe and deep breathe and exhale, etc. Could that have something to do with all my night vision is better? But and that's the only thing I did different. Could that affect it? I said, absolutely. I said, night vision is actually a contrast problem. We still do. We measure basically someone's contrast with something called a visual contrast sensitivity test. And it's an indication of mold illness, actually, biotoxic illness. It's one of the most accurate tests to see if you have mold problems. But it literally is looking at contrast, but really more specifically, it's looking at hypoperfusion of the optic nerve, meaning the lack of oxygen in the optic nerve, which is a reflection of what's going on throughout your body, right? Which explains a lot of mold symptoms. And basically, without taking a test, if someone says, I can't see good at night, that means you'd fail the test, right? But they have hypoperfusion. So I explained to her that because she's now breathing, she's getting all this oxygen now in places she never did. The optic nerve is one of the first places to react. And she said, well, I have to say, my energy is better. I'm losing weight. I feel better. I get less headaches and I'm sleeping deeper, all because of breathing. So anyways.
Well, pranayam, the word pranayam, the Ayurvedic yogic pranayam breathing techniques. Prana means breath. Yam means to pause or hold or extend your breath. So when people breathe shallow without even realizing it, because every one of us do that over time, we start doing something called overbreathing. And overbreathing means that you're breathing in more oxygen than you can actually use. So you're at 98% saturation on your oximeter reading on your blood, but you're blowing off, according to the research, 75% of the oxygen you were breathing in, you're blowing off unused. And when you're blowing off all that unused oxygen...
Just because you're breathing shallow.
Shallow.
Okay.
And most people are breathing shallow and they don't know it. And they're also blowing off excess carbon dioxide. So what happens is the oxygen levels go high and the CO2 levels go low. And you go to the doctor and say, oh, you're 98% saturation, everything is good. But they don't measure your CO2. And when oxygen is high and CO2 is low, that's the perfect storm for anxiety. So what happens is you put a paper bag over your mouth, you rebreathe your carbon dioxide, and the CO2 levels come back up and your anxiety goes away. When oxygen is high as a shallow breather and CO2 is low, the bond between the hemoglobin in your blood and the oxygen in your blood stays super tight. So everything stays so tight, and therefore the body's reluctant to hyperoxygenate the tissue. So you become hypoxic, risking mutagenic stem cells and things like that. But as you slow pranayama, pause, hold, or extend your breath, you slow the breath down, you build up what's called CO2 tolerance, like a free diver can. And all of a sudden, the CO2 levels are now matching and in balance with the oxygen. And that's the trigger to release the oxygen into your blood. And then when you talk about free divers who dive,
I wondered how
12 minutes down there, they're holding their breath. Their oxygen levels are coming down. Their CO2 levels are starting to rise significantly. That's the trigger to say, get all the oxygen into the tissues. And they found that that's something called intermittent hypoxia. So when the body starts to hold the breath, pause the breath, or extend the breath, like in pranayama, that's like one of the things is real deep, slow breathing or holding your breath comfortably, gently over time. That causes something where you start holding your breath and your oxygen goes from 98% saturation to 95. You're still holding your breath, 92. When you go into the 80s, you're in intermittent hypoxia. And that's when the body sends all the emergency vehicles to try to help you and get you back online, which means, and studies show, when you do that, stem cells are increased. Nitric oxide is increased. Endothelial growth factors are increased.
Wow.
EPO, Lance Armstrong got busted for injecting. You make your own when you hold your breath. Transcription factors called the guardian of your genome that protect your genes from expressing those genetic traits that happen to all of us as we age are produced when you slow your breath down, lengthen it, and build our CO2 tolerance. And that's what a lot of the breathing exercises are about, is just to get us trained so the diaphragm is working right, the rib cage is elastic, and they're independent of each other, and you have the ability to breathe long, slow, and deep. If you saw a bear in the woods, you're not going to go like this. It's going to be emergency breath. And that's our culture. That's our life.
The ancient culture, ancient human, right? They didn't know to hold your breath. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, if we're studying ancient cultures, ancient wisdom, it's like, they're relying on innate intelligence, right? Meaning to deal with their breath. If they run, it goes up. If they rest, it comes down, right? So, if we look at that lesson, then is this a modern day biohack that we need because we are more stressed out? Or is this something that ancient cultures did unknowing? Help me with that.
In Central America, they're called the Native American mail runners. And there were stories and books written about them. And they would run 5, 10, 15 miles to take mail or messages. They were messengers. And a lot of
these cultures ran their prey down, literally exhausted it to kill it.
Yeah, precision hunting. Mm-hmm. And they would put rocks in their mouth. Try running with rocks in your mouth and breathing through your mouth. Or they would put water in your mouth and then spit it out at the end. That was their message. So I actually, when I was with the New Jersey Nest,
just to keep them breathing through their nose?
Yeah.
Why not just breathe through your nose?
Well, this way, the teacher knows at the end that the water, you spit it out.
Yeah.
Like I got it. When I was with the New Jersey Nest, I was the director of player development. I was training some of the athletes, and there's this big hill in New Jersey where these guys didn't want to come up, and they said, you can't get up that hill. I said, you just breathe through your nose, get up there. They were like, they just couldn't do it. And I said, okay, I'll bet you $100. I'll drink this water here. And take all my water. I'll wait for you guys at the top, and I'll spit the water out when you come, and I'll breathe through my nose the whole way. I want $100. I never got paid, but it's something that we can all do. And if you don't have respiratory efficiency, you're breathing like a rabbit. The receptors for fight or flight and stress are up here, and that's where we live. Mm-hmm. Down here is the calm, rebuild, repair, rejuvenate, and digest receptors. And that's part of the problem. Nobody can digest their food anymore.
So when we talk about someone being sympathetic dominant, right? That's a stressed out person. That's a person who has a lot more anxiety. That's a person who doesn't sleep as well, right? So not a good thing, right? They have typically bad digestion because parasympathetic, the opposite, is more of a relaxed state. It's your body's digesting, your gut's working at its maximum. So you're saying is if you want to take control of that, because a lot of people have tried everything to be more calm, to be more parasympathetic, to help their digestion and their brain work better. But you're saying these receptors are up here,
right?
And it's all connected to this diaphragm,
that's right, and
this CO2, O2 thing, right? So, and we can retrain it.
Right. I can show you how to do that real quick.
We're going to show everyone how to do that. And my wife, when I sit next to my wife, I hear her gasp for air, I hear her taking shallow breaths, and then I just hear this gasp, I would do it if I was bent like this. Yeah. I feel like that she feels, and I always look to see is her position I would even say to her, sit up, but it's not that. It's this what you're describing. And before we learn how to do this is the technique that you're saying. And kind of explain that when you're saying your diaphragm being attached to your rib cage. It's not physically attached, you're saying, but explain that.
The diaphragm is right above the stomach. So that when you don't breathe very well, and we mentioned off air that there was a study done, this may help your wife. It was a Johns Hopkins study and showed that 45 to 65% of the women during their pregnancy or after their pregnancy had what's called a hiatal hernia, which means the baby, right? We all know it takes up a lot of space. It pushes up against.
Yeah, you immediately ask how many children I have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We have 6. You have 5.
We have 5. So
I have
3 births.
I teach my wife that. We were constantly getting her to train her diaphragm after 6 babies. Your wife had a lot of babies, and when that baby takes up space and pushes the stomach against the diaphragm can't contract anymore because there's a big stomach in the way. And sometimes that stomach just never really comes down. And oftentimes women postpartum have digestive issues and health concerns that just last for decades. They say things like, I've never been the same since my babies. And that's what's happening here. And
I wonder how many people watching this would say that.
Yeah. Oh, I hear it all the time. I told my publisher years ago, I said, I want to write a book like that. And he said, oh, that's stupid. No one would read that book. And, 20 years later, I'm going, I still have these patients coming to my office telling me that exact same thing,
Yeah, interesting. So you're saying like physically it could be pushed up from pregnancy. What else could cause this?
Stress.
Okay, stress.
The other thing that can cause it is, digestive issues, heartburn, GERD, reflux. We hear the whole seed oil thing, right? When you eat seed oils, it creates bile sludge. Bile sludge means you're not making enough bile. Well, bile is not only an emulsifier of fat, it's a buffer for stomach acid. So you eat a ham sandwich, your stomach says, hey, I need a bunch of acid to cook the gluten in the bread and the protein in the ham, and I need a bunch of bile to emulsify all that, or to buffer all that acid. I also need a bunch of bile to, break down the fat in the ham.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the stomach sends a message to your liver and says, I need this much bile like now. And your stomach and your liver's going like, man, we're busy down here. We just can't do it. And the stomach says, it's all right, man. I'll just hold on to the food and the acid and everything, and I'll just hold on to it. And you start burping, you get heartburn, indigestion, and it pushes up. In Ayurveda, they call it Udvarta, or upward moving digestion. In Western medicine, we call it gastroparesis, where the stomach is just holding on to the food longer than it should. And it's going to go up. And now your diaphragm, which is trying to breathe 26,000 times a day, is trying to contract, but there's a big stomach in the way. So you start to shallow breathe, not to mention the stress in your life. And this happened, and this happened, and the TV and the politics. And we're constantly being bombarded by stress, as opposed to our ancestors, which it was like pretty chill, compared to getting chased by a lion once in a while. Basically, life was, that deep silence and resonance and presence of nature. We all entrained and were in resonance with that. We don't have that anymore. So we have to do something daily to get this diaphragm to pull that air down into the receptors that calm you down, get that balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide and nitric oxide, because those are the three that keep us young. The nitric oxide is produced when you breathe through your nose.
Vasodilator.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's produced when you breathe through your nose. Produce zero when you breathe through your mouth. And by the age of 40, the average American has lost 50% of their nitric oxide production. And just like you said, it's the vasodilator. It's the one that allows the kid to roll down the stairs again and again and do it and love it. You and I, if we did that, are like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it twice, because we've lost that vasoelasticity, that our arteries become like rock, our bones, our muscles become stiff. We become rigid as we get older. And that was like one of the key longevity factors thousands of years ago, is to keep the body able to boost its own nitric oxide production to stay supple and elastic as you age. It's like a critical piece of the puzzle. And your diaphragm is like step one.
Wow. And we can retrain this.
Oh, 100%.
We're
about, like I said, what I'm going to teach you guys, just 5 minutes a day. I mean, you can do more for sure, but at the least, just do 5 minutes.
Yeah, but I think that's key, because if you give someone a small goal, I feel like we can get everyone to do this, right? 5 minutes.
And you can do this in front of your computer.
Yeah. Oh, even better.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If we could do it in bed, can we do it in bed?
Actually, you can do it in bed.
Oh, man, forget it. You guys are set.
There is an in-bed version of this, so I can teach that to you too.
Yeah. It's fascinating though, because like I said, this balance of oxygen, CO2, nitric oxide, right? And that makes sense to me. And it kind of answers my earlier question too. Like why ancient cultures really, this wouldn't have impacted them as much, because number one, they didn't have enough, the amount of stress that we do. Number two, their diaphragm wasn't up here because of that amount of stress, right? So a lot of this they were doing naturally.
Right. And they were always moving. They were, the other thing that they didn't have until 5,000 years ago, and that was only for the royalty, were chairs.
No,
they didn't have them.
Yeah. And squatting, they squatted.
That's all they did. And when you squat, you breathe different.
By the way, as a former chiropractor of structural correction, I can tell you squatting puts the spine in the perfect position, trains the spine in the perfect, sitting drives the head forward and the hips forward. It does everything opposite. When you squat, your head goes back, your hips go in the perfect position, and your spine is like literally trained for the perfect position. So
and that's how they spent most of their time. If they weren't running or chasing something, they were squatting.
Yeah. But it opens the knees up. It opens the hips up. Everything, all your joints that age as us chair sitters.
Some of these breathing techniques you can do in a squatting position. I have to have people do that to train the floor of the pelvis.
Squatting is one of those things too, is like you go to these, I've been to Africa several times, and it's like I see these like very, very old people, put them right down in a squat position. You take an American and an 80-year-old, let alone a 100-year-old American, and tell them to squat, good luck. They're not coming up, or they're not going, they're not making it down either. Things are going to just go, So, but yeah, I mean, and it pulls the oxygen in the joints. I mean, squatting's, we could do a whole show on that. But anyway, okay, so we're going to learn this technique that we're going to do at least 5 minutes a day.
Yeah.
It's going to separate the diaphragm from the rib cage. It's going to improve blood flow, bile flow, digestion, our brain, how our brain works, our lymphatic system. So now we're going to be clearing toxins that much better. Right? It's going to improve our sleep.
Right.
If people have chronic pain, it's going to improve our chronic pain. Right. So
I'm going to give you one technique, which I will call flossing your diaphragm, or sometimes I call it calisthenics for the diaphragm. It's just, we just got to get this. We got to get the rib cage to be independent of your diaphragm. They can't be stuck together. Yeah. And that's how it is with most people. Okay. And then I can give you some other, like when you're walking your dog, what's a really cool breathing technique you can do there? We're
going to learn all this.
Okay, good. All right. So the first one is really simple. And I've got a video on this if you want to watch it in depth. It's called The Best Diaphragmatic Breathing Exercise. You can go and check that on my site. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to breathe your belly, then your chest, then your upper chest. Now, what's interesting is that the research journals call the thing that lowered blood pressure and reversed your heartburn, GERD, indigestion, and got rid of the extra weight around your belly, because the diaphragm is the pump for all the fat. And that's not fat. That's lymph congestion. The lion's share of the lymph in your body is around your belly. And that's why that takes a beating first. So this is all going to be about getting that lymph system to move from your belly.
Now we've got people committed.
Yeah, right.
Now you got them.
Okay. So we're going to breathe through our nose only, and we're going to breathe in and fill the belly only. Belly.
So it's probably good to do this.
Yeah, put your hand on your belly, put your hand on your chest so you get feel. Now, when you fill your belly, push it out like a Buddha belly, like that. So breathe in through the belly, stick that belly out. Now go to your chest. And now go to your upper chest. Good. And then let it out. Now, the next step...
I can tell you have so much more volume than me.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I can just watch you. Like you put so much air here. I could just tell I'm discouraged here. I gotta keep up.
We'll get you on this. So the last step of this is to take it to maximal. So at the very end, the very top, you're going to take little sips of air through your nose to take as much as you can in. But we're doing it long and slow and deep. So we're not going really fast, because that could create an emergency.
A little bit at a time.
Yeah. So we're going really slow. That's a key piece here. So here we go again.
By the way, I tell people when they have hiccups to do that.
Right.
Like go as far okay, now go, because it forces the diaphragm down. It fixes hiccups. Okay, so that makes sense to me.
Exactly.
All right.
So here we go again. Then we're going to do the whole thing. Belly all the way in as you breathe in. Belly, 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 belly. Chest. Upper chest. At the very top, little sips. Feel the pull into your rib cage. Let the air out. And when you get the air out, narrow the rib cage. Contract your abdomen. And breathe in again. Belly goes out. Chest. Upper chest. Sip, sip, sip. And out. That's the first video. Really easy.
Okay, I do feel it, like you said.
Yeah, right, You're feeling the diaphragm go down and your rib cage is going up. Now we're going to exaggerate that by taking your arms over your head like this. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fill the belly. As you breathe in, belly goes out. Chest. All the way with your chest. Upper chest. Then reach, reach, reach. Sip, sip, sip. Much as you can. And the arms come back down. You might have felt that wow. I might, if you really reach.
I felt like I could get more in.
Yeah. And this is really going up and the diaphragm is really going down. You're creating a whole lot of elasticity. And you do 10 like that.
10.
In front of your computer.
Okay,
that's
so that's 5 minutes. Let's do one more.
Okay. Then go belly. Arms over first. Sorry. Okay. Go. Now breathe into the belly. Chest. Upper chest. Reach and sip. And then come down, narrow the rib cage all the way, contract the abdomen, get all that air out. Do 10 straight up, and then go 10 to the side, over to the side. Same thing. Fill your belly, chest, upper chest, sip, sip, sip. And then when you come out this way, breathe all the way out, narrow the rib cage, contract your abdomen, go to the other side, squeeze it all out, squeeze it all the way out. And you do 10.
So you went the other way. You went opposite to let out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you breathe in,
So,
in,
got it,
and then out all the way to the other side.
Okay, and then out all the way. So you do 10 straight, 10 to both sides.
Yep.
So that's 10, 20, 30.
And you can do this right in front of your computer.
Yeah. So
right
10,
there.
20, 30.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
I can do this.
Yeah. It's easy to do.
My wife will even say she can do this because you know how you do all the breathing things and the breath in, the breath in. She's too ADD for it all. I mean,
Let me teach you the one for her in bed.
Okay.
This is the thing you do. You can do it sitting too. Okay.
What's this going to do for her bed?
This is going to be in bed. She wakes up. Everybody, you wake up, roll over on your back, and you do this exercise. And this can be your 5 minutes. Okay. It's a little bit of a different exercise.
Okay. So I'm just laying on my bed.
Yep.
And okay.
But we're going to pretend we're laying down. So here's how it works. We just taught you how to breathe belly, chest, upper chest, which is exactly how humans breathe. Always upper chest. If you watch your dog breathe, your baby breathe, a horse breathe, they don't do that. They breathe laterally. It's called lateral or horizontal breathing.
You can watch that. Yeah.
Right. So we're going to do that. That's this exercise. So this time we're not going to go to the chest. We're going to fill the belly. Now we're going to not go here. We're going to go here and push the air out to your side. Sip it. Feel the pressure here. Feel the pressure if you keep sipping into your back. And then as you lie on your back in the bed, squeeze it, contract it. Belly goes out. Don't go up. Go low and wide. Push the air out to your sides. Feel that lateral pressure like you're pumping like a basketball kind of feeling. Keep sipping air till you take it to maximal. Narrow the rib cage and contract your abdomen. You literally do that while you're lying in bed in the morning, and that will get your abdominal moving, your peristalsis going. You'll wake up, have a great balance.
So
that's
on that
what
one,
kickstarts
you're
things.
keeping it here. You're not going chest.
You're not going up this time.
All right. Yeah.
And
you're
that's
just keeping it here, and then you're feeling that expansion.
Yeah.
In the back, which I felt, and then you're contracting. You're focused on the contraction that way.
You gotta have to do both too, because you got to get the rib cage to go up and over, and the diaphragm to go
that's
down.
Helping that separation, as you're saying, of the diaphragm. This is, it can also adhere to the back.
Diaphragm.
And that's why, maybe I don't know where I got this. I heard you talking about how so much low back pain goes away within just days of doing this.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So much back pain.
When I wrote my book, Body, Mind, Sport, it was just...
Get your mic closer there.
When I wrote my book, Body, Mind, Sport, it was just nose breathing versus mouth breathing. I just tell people, just breathe through the nose when they exercise. It was like more than that, but there was nothing like this, no exercises specifically. And I started getting letters, this is way before email, in the mail saying, my low back pain's better, my hip pain's better. I'm going like... all I told you to do was breathe through your nose. I just, then I started realizing this thing is bigger than just nose breathing versus mouth breathing.
I'm fortunately a nose breather. At night, I breathe naturally through my nose. If you're sick or something, or, I'm typically like a one glass of wine person. Let's say I have 3 or 4, I'll be a mouth breather.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I'm saying. So it shows you it's not good. But the people that are taping their mouth, I have a few issues with it. Okay. Number one, a lot of people are doing that, but the cause is an airway issue. So much infection in their mouth, they'll get airway issues, right? It'll drive inflammation. And by taping the mouth, it's arguably for someone who doesn't have that, it could train them to breathe through their nose. However, they're now trying to keep their mouth shut, breathing. Their brain's not getting enough oxygen. They're breathing through their darn mouth because their brain can't get enough oxygen because they have airway issues, which could be infection. It could be other things. It could be structural problems. It could be, there's a lot of things that cause airway issues. But I mean, what do you think about this taping?
I think you have to do the nose breathing training in life while you're walking, exercising, doing these
and that was the second thing. So you learned this, but again, when we're walking, doing things, we should, because when people start walking, they don't realize they're mouth breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they need to keep the mouth shut. They need to put water or rocks in their mouth.
So here's a couple of, before I want to talk about mouth taping and how to do it properly.
Yeah, I threw a lot out.
Because that's a lot.
Okay.
That's really important. because it's not a life sentence. Mouth taping is not a forever thing.
No, it's about retraining.
Right.
But my point, though, is if you have infection and inflammation, you're not retraining anything ever.
Right.
And you could be getting less oxygen.
Exactly. So here are some walking exercises. When you go for a walk, count how many steps you take for your inhalation. Always through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the exhale.
Box breathing.
Well, no, this is just walking and counting how many.
Wouldn't that be like a box breathing? Meaning
kind
one,
of a
two,
box
three,
is
four,
inhale,
1, 2, 3,
hold,
4.
exhale, hold like that. So what you're going to do here is really simple. You're just going to try to take 10 steps for your inhalation, and you're going to try to take 15.
Oh, so the 4 was what most people do.
Yeah.
But you're saying try to do 10 steps on the in, 10 steps on the way out.
No. 15 to 20 on the way out.
Oh, okay. Because to your point, exhale is more important. That's that CO2
CO2 tolerance, right? So that's your goal. And then you're not going to do that right away, but that's the goal.
10 on the way in, 10 steps on the way in.
Yep.
And by the way, y'all should be walking after meals anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little bit of walking after meals is transformative to blood glucose, insulin, and how much fat you actually store. But anyways, 10 steps. And then 15 to 20 on the way out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that'll lengthen the exhale. So that's one that you can do. Another one, if you want to do, which is really a kind of a fun one, is you just go for a walk. You're walking your dog.
And by the way, we could do that whole breathing thing too while we're walking.
Oh, totally.
If you wanted to.
You could have your arms up over. Right, absolutely. You can do.
But you don't have to. You could just breathe and walk too.
Yep.
So, okay.
So this next one is more about learning how to extend and lengthen the breath and do some very initial breath holding. So you're breathing in as you're walking, comfortable breath. You're walking your dog in and out, and then hold your breath and count how many steps you take during the breath hold. And then as soon as you say, like, take 10 steps and I need to breathe, you come back and you breathe the same breath. So the goal is you have a rhythm of breathing in and out as you're walking, and then count how many steps you take with a breath hold on the exhale.
Yeah, so hold
on
the
the
breath
exhale.
On the exhale.
On the exhale.
That's important.
And then your recovery breath has to be the same breath that you came in with. It can't be like a recovery breath. And then you keep trying to lengthen, like I did 10 today, and maybe tomorrow I can do 12 or whatever. Every day you go out there and you become a better breath holder, which means you're better at tolerating CO2 building up, which means you're going to be calmer.
The free divers. How do these free divers, what's the record for free diving?
Right now it's like 12 minutes without oxygen.
I thought it was 20 minutes.
With oxygen. They would pump oxygen up before they go and then dive down.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
But 12, just you and me just going off like right minutes. Now and going in.
And they
do a breathe up. They do a breathe up. Yeah.
Like
they do a lot of deep
Wim Hof breathing thing. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, but they do this, they train this exact way. They just keep practicing holding their breath.
Yeah, they practice holding their breath, and they practice holding their breath under the water.
Oh yeah, while they're physically doing something.
And the cool thing about it, when I dabble in this free diving world a little bit, and it's dark down there, and it's cold, and it's scary.
Oh yeah, your instinct is
right.
Yeah.
But what's happening when your CO2 levels are rising? What happens is you get calm. You're neurologically being told there's no worry here, because your CO2 levels are telling your body that we're okay. And that's how they can stay so calm down. They actually get this neurological calm that comes over them. It's really phenomenal.
Again, this is why this fixes anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah, you said once that CO2 reaches that point, like all anxiety goes away. And again, I'm reiterating what you said. That's why bag breathing. Actually, I wonder if the masks, like you see these people still wearing masks. Yeah. So like masks, like it didn't work for viruses, by the way. Masks do not block viruses. Okay. Stupidity here.
Yeah, it didn't work for anxiety either. We got more stress. You know what I mean?
I hated it. Okay.
I was like, maybe the mask will do one good thing and help people get calm by rebreathing their CO2.
That was my question. It doesn't work. Okay. Because I was thinking maybe that's why these people are still doing it. Maybe they have less anxiety and they're actually addicted to it. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I was hoping it would work, but it didn't seem to make it. No, people got more stressed than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The whole thing was so stressful. But anyway, another story. But it was one of those COVID bad things that like people are still wearing.
What's also interesting is long haul COVID, when it first came out, that was directly linked to congestion of the brain's lymphatic and glymphatic systems. And that's because the diaphragm, when you have COVID, you can't breathe. You lose the cerebrospinal fluid pump. You can't get the trash out of your head, which is governing an immune response.
So let me bring your knowledge with my knowledge, right?
Okay.
So this is amazing. So we know that a lot of these long haulers end up in what is called a cellular danger response, which is dysautonomia. Okay. Well, who ended up with this? Well, a lot of people who I say their buckets were already full, meaning very stressed, physical, chemical, and emotional.
Right.
The COVID just became that one more stress, and their body didn't adapt to it.
Right.
And it was a foreign virus, man-made virus, I should say, and the body didn't adapt. And then they went cellular danger, and now they're dysautonomic, their thyroid, their adrenals, right? So that is a lot of what COVID is. And, or long haulers, I'm sorry. So what you're saying is true then. So if this whole lymphatic system is not draining, if the people that already have blocked lymph, those are the same people that I'm saying were the people that ended up long haulers, whether they were 30 years old or 80 years old, same people. So again, if you were doing this technique or learn this technique, you could break out. It'll help you break out of this cellular danger response.
Who regulates whether you're in sympathetic or parasympathetic dominance? Who's in charge of that? Your diaphragm.
Yeah.
How you breathe.
Yeah. This is right? Great. Yeah.
So you lose that, then you're going to directly get brain lymphatic congestion, which can be, let's say you eat wheat. Oh, I can't eat wheat.
Oh, we're going to talk about this.
Okay.
We're going to talk about this. We got to hang on.
All right.
He's going to tell you how you can eat wheat and not react. Okay. And we're going to get into the diet thing next, but I have to exhaust this whole thing on the breathing because
here we go.
I feel like this is really important for people.
Yeah, it is.
I do. I mean, like I said, you made some of the top athletes in the world. You transformed them. When the first Olympics was in Mexico City, people probably don't realize this, but Mexico City is actually the highest big city in the world. It's at over 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
So a lot of these athletes, of course, winter athletes train at elevation all the time.
Yeah.
But typically these summer athletes don't. It was shocking. So kind of tell that story because it was the breather, the people who learned these techniques that actually won all the gold medals.
There was a opera singer trainer from New York City. His name was Carl Stow, who was in the latter part of his career at that time. And he was having such great success teaching people how to breathe and opera singers and people who couldn't breathe. And that the Olympic Committee brought him out to Squaw Valley to train at high altitude for the Mexico City Olympics in 1968, which was like the first time at altitude, like you said. And he taught them how to breathe. And the key, his whole thing was exhale. And like I told you, when we did this, you have to breathe out and narrow the rib cage and contract your abdomen. Now that Olympics, it was the Summer Olympics with Lee Evans. They won more gold medals in that Olympics than any other time before. Mm-hmm. That was the one where they had the black gloves on. That's what people remember. That was the whole thing. Mm-hmm. That was that Olympics. But Lee Evans said, when I ran the 400 and I won the gold medal, you know what he kept telling himself the entire time?
Exhale.
Exhale. Exhale. Exhale. Exhale. Yeah. All the way. Exhale. And that's what we don't do. Because you see, that lateral breathing technique that I showed you, where you have to breathe out to the side, that creates what's called lateral excursion. So what you can do is put a tape measure around your rib cage.
And watch it.
Breathe all the way out. Take a measurement. Breathe in all the way out and take another measurement out. And see how open your rib cage gets. And then start practicing this technique and watch your rib cage get better. If your rib cage is tight like a cage, when you exhale, your diaphragm relaxes by parachuting up under the rib cage, and that pushes the dead airspace. It's like 500 milliliters of air out, which for a lot of folks, it never leaves you. It's just dead airspace. But when you have a full exhalation, it isn't dead. You're getting that out and you're getting so much room for new oxygenation of those lower lobes of your lungs. So that's what that guy, Carl Stow, taught these athletes how to manage high altitude training. But that's what this lateral breathing is about, is to get their elasticity laterally, like your dog, cat, or horse, or baby. They're breathing and their diaphragm is fully relaxing and it goes up under that rib cage. But most of us are so rigid here, we don't have that. So yeah, that's a great story.
I think I'm 60 and you can feel the more tight joints, right? It's fibrotic tissue, et cetera, right? It's like, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, this can transform that, because really, I mean, those tissues getting harder, if you will, just simplify that. Really, they're lacking a lot of oxygen.
And that's one of the reasons why it's really good to train yourself to nose breathe, because then you're getting the paranasal nitric oxide production by breathing through your nose, which is, by the way, an antiviral gas. So you're out talking to people, interacting with people, eating this and that, exposing your lungs and breath and your digestion to a whole bunch of pathogens potentially. and then you close your mouth when you breathe, how traditional cultures were trained from babies to do that, you're breathing in only when you breathe through your nose, the nitric oxide gas, which is the most antiviral gas we have to give you an immune response to help you not get sick from that exposure you had all day long.
Wow.
It's logical.
I don't think we closed the loop on the tape, mouth tape.
All right. Yeah. So what I tell my patients to do, and I agree with you, there's underlying pathologies, rigidity of the rib cage, diaphragmatic dysfunction, all that has to get better, like with these exercises. And then give it a go where you take the tape, not like this. You put the tape like this first, where you can still talk and breathe through.
You can get some air. You don't panic.
You're not going to panic, and you can still breathe through your mouth. If that, you wake up in the morning and it's on the ceiling or somewhere, it didn't go well. But if you can get that to be there in the morning, then you're in good shape. Then you can go this way with the tape. I use a tape. I get it at the King. You don't have to buy some special fancy tape.
Some of them have just a tiny little hole in the middle. Some of the people are making them.
Yeah, you don't need to go there. You just go to the grocery store. They have a NextCare micropore tape made by 3M. It's blue. It's for sensitive skin. It costs you nothing. A lot of these mouth tapes are like $1 a night, and that adds up.
That's a lot of nights.
That's a lot of, So you just put it here first and then put it here. And when you have it here and it's still there in the morning, now you've trained yourself. If you start waking up in the night with a dry mouth again, now you've lost access to the nose breathing. And when you dry out your mouth, you kill the bacteria in your mouth that convert the nitrates in your food to nitrites, which makes your nitric oxide. So we make nitric oxide, that gas that we lose 50% of by age 40, which keeps us young. We lose that because the bacteria in our mouth are destroyed by mouth breathing at night, fluoride in the water, and mouthwashes, and pesticides and preservatives in our food. We're constantly killing bugs that are so critical to take the nitrates in the beets and the arugula and convert that into nitrites, which creates a global discharge of nitric oxide throughout your whole body. That is like, and this is why, like in Ayurveda, they were like, the first time I saw this, I was in India, it was 1986. And there was a guy taking a bath in a fountain in the middle of the town. He was just taking a bath and he was putting oil on his skin and he put oil in his mouth. And I'm sitting there watching him and he started swishing the oil around in his mouth and he spit it out. And now, it's like 40 years later, we have the science to show that when you put that oil in your mouth, you change the microbiome, you kill the bad bacteria, you spare the good bacteria, and you create an environment for the bugs that make your nitric oxide, that convert the nitrates to nitrites.
Tongue scraping increases.
Same thing.
Because it takes out the bad, but it stimulates the bacteria that you need to make nitric oxide.
Right.
And you can literally lower blood pressure just by tongue scraping because it's really affecting nitric oxide. And you're right on the mouthwash. Mouthwash crushes nitric oxide production, raises blood pressure even in 20-year-olds.
Yeah. So tongue scraping with a copper tongue scraper because copper is antiseptic. And putting some oil in your mouth, sesame, olive oil. So tongue
scrape, then put some good olive oil.
Yep, really and switch it, and then spit it out after 10 minutes. And you're going to start seeing it works.
Good video right there.
Just as well as the mouthwash for getting rid of the bad bacteria, particularly Streptococcus mutans, which is the one that causes the plaque and the plaque and tartar on your teeth. But 63% of the plaque in your arteries come from that bacteria. So that heart plaque is directly linked to the plaque in your mouth. So you want to, Ayurveda was all over making sure your mouth is working for you. They train kids to breathe through their nose, the tongue scrape, oil pull, make sure this mouth is critically important.
I never bought into oil pulling toxins because it's measurable, but that makes sense. Right. It's affecting the oral microbiome.
Exactly. The environment.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. I always said there's other benefits to it, but I can tell you it's not pulling toxins.
Yeah, I agree. They call it pulling for I don't know why they call it that.
Yeah, that's a detox myth. Anything else on the subject before we leave? Because you're the expert.
I mean, the other thing is just, my first book was just about nose breathing when you run.
Yeah, what was the name of that book?
Body, Mind, Sport.
Yeah, we don't have that one.
Yeah, it's about down at the bottom. So here's the thing. Oh, yeah,
here it is. Yeah, Body, Mind, Sport. Yeah, right there. That's the one. People can still get this. And it teaches them how to nose breathe and all that.
Yeah.
Right? So on Amazon, I'm sure.
Yeah. What we did with that research that we published, we actually had the kids I was telling you about, they went nose breathing to mouth breathing. And when they mouth breathed, their brain went into a fight or flight beta state. The brain waves changed to be stressed out. They came back the next day and their brain waves, by breathing through their nose, went into a meditative calm alpha wave with brainwave coherence, which means that the whole brain, all different parts of the brain were doing the exact same thing in a calm way. Like it was like if you were running as fast as you could, but your brain was saying, I'm meditating right now. It was unprecedented finding. The breath rates when they were mouth breathing was 48 breaths per minute. Same kids came back the next day, did the same workout, 200 watts of resistance, 14 breaths per minute versus 48.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know, and the research just went on and on and on. But the point of that was that when you're teaching yourself how to be calm in the middle of exercise stress, you can roll that out of teaching about how to be calm in your daily life stress. So it's a model.
Yeah, so learning it in exercise is a really good thing. Yeah.
Huge.
I'm going back at it, right? When I cycle, you know, it's because I was like, I mean, like I said, low level, I can easily do it, but it was when it got intense that you get panicked, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I call it the eye of the storm. Like the bigger the eye, the bigger the calm.
Bigger the storm.
The bigger the storm, the more powerful the winds. So you're going to be more effective in your life if you can start, you know, dipping the cloth in the dye of that silence. Because that's like a law of nature. I mean, galaxies, solar systems, atoms, everything spins around a silent center, hurricanes. We do the same thing, but we get pushed out into the stress and get beat up. But the whole kind of Vedic thing was, man, our full potential is in this coexistence of opposites, not just being out there beating myself up, see how much I can do, recover the next day, beat myself up again, recover. You know, as an athlete, you're limited by how much you can do that. After 20, 30, 40 years of that, you're like, I'm done. I just want to go for a walk.
Is there any studies on people that master this and living longer? I mean, is it level of measure of anti-aging?
That's a great question. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, I haven't been tracking this long enough to see. I'll see how long I live. I'll tell you when I get there. But
how old are you?
69.
Yeah, you look great.
Yeah, thanks.
It's working.
I mean, I definitely practice it all the time, and my wife thinks I'm a little nutty. But you know, I think that doing things that are time tested, that have thousands of years of practice, and modern science together, that's what I do. You know, the biohacking world, I love it, but it keeps changing. And
I have a lot of criticism in the biohacking world because of the premise of hormesis, meaning the only reason some of these things work is because it's a great stress and the body adapts to stress. But if it doesn't, it becomes bad. And I see people doing a lot of these things and they're not adapting.
Right.
And they're not
stacking the hormesis.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not adapting and they're not listening to their body. So the next day they're wiped out, fatigued, and they never associate because when they came out of the cold bath, they felt amazing. Or, you know, I mean, again, there's a right amount.
Right.
Maybe a right temperature, a right time, etc. There's a wrong time and there's a wrong temperature. And, you know, it's like, and that's the art of understanding hormesis and listening to your body. But people aren't doing that with a lot of the biohacks. Yeah.
It's a little trendy. And when you think about our culture and how super stressed we already are, then we have to really dial in how much hormesis stress do I really need? Exactly. Where we go from being good to being not good.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's like a trained athlete, right? You hire a coach to understand that question.
Exactly.
How much do I need, right? And how do I raise my hormetic ceiling, meaning the ability to apply more stress, to apply more improvement, to be faster, smarter, whatever it is. You know, it's like, you know, healthier. You know, again, that's how to do that is times of intensity, times of great rest, in perfect diets and these things that allow you to adapt to raise that hormetic ceiling. The average person with biohacks is not paying attention to any of that.
No, his more is better.
Yeah. And again, you know, being in that kind of physical shape is an extraordinary thing for one race or, you know, a season of races, whatever. Yeah. But, you know, the average person, you ask the question, you know, how much of that hormetic stress do we actually need to perform at a really high level? I would argue you need quite a bit and you better adapt. Okay? But to be healthier, I don't know, right? That's a good question. How much?
I mean, the exercise model has always been stress recover. The harder you beat yourself up, the more you're going to break your body down to build yourself back up.
But only if you recover.
And that's the point. You recover, you know, by the time you're 29 or 30, as an athlete, you're washed up for the most part.
True.
So what our culture has done is created a whole program for exercise based on squeezing world records out of 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then they just sent them out to pasture.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the most devastating things was the whole CrossFit thing, right?
Yeah.
Those people were training like 20-year-old athletes, Olympic athletes that had coaches that understand this premise of hormesis, right? They're going to the cross gym, doing the same thing every time, trying to outdo the next person, wonder why they were getting tendonitis as injury after injury after injury, right? And fatigue and not sleeping and disaster. But I mean, I'm picking on CrossFit, but there's so many things like that even right now, with the next whatever class, like the riding classes, what are those spinning classes? I mean, it's always going to be the next thing. That's not going to go away.
So when you learn how to be a nose breather and you create respiratory efficiency and your brain is responding to a vigorous workout as a meditation, your fight or flight nervous system is not at 100% as it normally would be. It's at 50%. Your parasympathetic nervous system during vigorous exercise zeroes out normally. But in our study, it equaled the parasympathetic system.
So your ability to adapt goes way higher.
You had the two opposite nervous systems coexisting. That's the hurricane thing.
That's crazy.
We had the coherence and brainwave of meditation and the calm at the same time. That's the model we're looking for. So when you're running and competing next to somebody, and the perceived exertion study was 10 out of 10 for the mouth breathers, which means how do you feel? A number scale 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. Our guys were a 4 out of 10 versus a 10 out of 10. So if you're competing next to somebody and your brainwave's in alpha, your meditative is calm, your sympathetic and parasympathetics are coexisting. So you're not like stressed out or you're completely calm. You're in the eye of the storm, and your perceived exertion is a 4 versus a 10, and you're right next to that person. Who's going to win that race? So you don't have to break your body down to build yourself up. That's the old model.
Perception's your reality. So if your brain is perceiving not much stress, it's going to give you more.
Right.
And it's going to recover better.
Right. That's the key, is the recovery. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, some of that is going to be okay, but what we don't do in the world of athletics is we don't let these kids rest. I trained so many really high-level athletes, swimmers, Olympic swimmers, who didn't do what their coaches told them all the time. They were like, I don't do it. They said, I just try to, I'm fake. I'm just not, if I did what they said, I'd be broken.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those, unfortunately, coaches do not understand these principles that we're talking about.
They get very excited. It's really hard. It's hard to dial it down.
I mean, as a cyclist, I was able to train and race at the elite level and still work a full schedule only because I knew how to train. Those times of high intensity were very short. Listening to your body, watching your sleep, heart rate, all of it to see if you in fact adapted. And then a lot of time in easy pedaling, right? In those short times of intensity, you just watch your body to know if you can push harder for any longer. But it was all about recovery. Cyclists seem like they got it. I mean, it's like more so than just runners. Yeah. Like cyclists really dial that in.
Because there was always, if there was an up, there was always a down. So there was always that opportunity to kind of just give the body that recovery, on demand, not all the time, but it was there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're racing 100 miles at that level and it's in all these races, it's brutal. You have to understand recovery because in short order, you realize, without recovery, you're done and you're injured. Okay. All right. How do we people, I would say eat ancient wheat and eat Italian wheat because it's a better wheat. But you're talking about something very different here.
I'm talking about that too. No doubt about it. That the wheat that we have today, the glyphosate, we have issues, no doubt. But that's not the only issue. The wheat is a canary in the coal mine. You and I both, when we first got into practice, we told people don't eat wheat and they felt better. And then a month or two later, they'd come back and the problem came back and you say, now don't eat dairy and then don't eat soy and don't eat. And
by the way, now it's plant toxins, now it's lectins, now it's phyte. And I'm saying, wait a minute, is it plant toxins and phyte? These have been in the human diet for eons, centuries, right? Is it the plant toxins or is it the gut that allows them to go through and make antibodies to it?
You and I come out of the same mold. I mean, really, it's really true. Because that bubble wrapping in the diet, I call it, is just really you're kicking the real problem down the road. And I'll give you some studies to back that up. a group of people who ate wheat versus people who didn't eat wheat. They were gluten-free, but they didn't have to be. The people who ate wheat had 4 times less mercury in their blood than the people who were gluten-free, but didn't have to be.
Okay, so say that one more time.
The people who ate the wheat had 4 times less mercury in their blood than the people who were gluten-free, but didn't have to be. They weren't celiac.
All right.
People who ate wheat had significantly more good bugs, less bad bugs, and more killer T cells than the people who were gluten-free, but didn't have to be. In my eat book, there's 600 studies in this book.
I want this study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just that study's, there's an article called The Dangers of a Gluten-Free Diet, and that study's right in that article there. But the point is that
how do I find that study?
Lifespa.com. Go to my website, just type in that, and I can send it to you.
Okay.
And it's here. You have that now. It's it's in there.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So the thing is that without asking the problem why I can't eat these foods, and it's not just wheat, like you said, it's nuts, seeds, grains, glycans, lysins, oxygens,
histamines,
everything.
Yeah.
We can't continue to go down the road taking stuff out. There'll be nothing left.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not the right way to go. So there was a study, really cool study. It was a study with Amish kids, and they have, I don't know if you knew this, but the lowest rates of asthma on the planet.
Autism. Other things,
well, maybe that, but we know they have low asthma, and their genetic cousins called the Hutterites. They came from Switzerland, same valley, same exact genetic pool. But when they came here, they became sterile, stainless steel, modern dairy farmers. Where the Amish were still kids were running barefoot in the barns. They had cows as pets, and they had the lowest rates of asthma compared to their genetic cousins.
So they weren't wearing masks during COVID.
I have no idea.
That was a joke anyway. Of course they weren't.
Yeah, of course they are. I mean, yeah. This is a really cool pool, right? You have highest and lowest rate of asthma on the planet for kids. They measured the dust in the barn, and they found it was the dust in the barn that these kids were running around barefoot in was irritating the respiratory tract, creating a hormetic response to create an immune response against the asthma. So if you don't eat the harder to digest foods like the lectins, the phytic acids, the goitrogens, if you don't eat them, you don't get gut immunity.
How long have I been saying this? I mean, I've been saying this for eons, man. Yeah. It's like, look, they act hormetically, these little plant toxins.
Right.
It's like they sound horrible. Plant toxins, I should stay away from it. No, you need this stress thing like the dust in the barn.
Exactly. So this whole book is really about helping people troubleshoot where their digestion broke down and how to fix whether it be the stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, liver bile flow, the health of your intestinal lining, the lymphatic system, which starts in your intestinal tract. There was a really cool study, and we talked about lymph as the longevity fluid in the body. Study showed that if you don't break down your protein and your fat, your gluten and the fats, the environmental pollutant fats that are everywhere in our atmosphere, if you don't break them down completely, they will be too big, and I'm quoting the study now, too big to get into your blood and nourish you. They'll get uptaken into the collecting ducts of your lymphatic system in your intestinal tract, and they'll irritate the lining of your gut, create inflammation in your gut, cause compromising the gut immunity, and store extra fat around your hips and your waist and your belly. And that creates, over time, a systemic lymphatic congestion, which is linked to cognitive decline and tiredness and lethargy and immune issues and skin rashes and brain fog and food comas. All this stuff comes because you didn't digest your food well, And that, so Ayurveda was like, thousands of years ago, they said, 85% of all disease comes from a poor digestion. Mm-hmm. And we just don't, who do you hear talk about fixing how to actually fix your digestion with foods and herbs and different things to reboot the function of your stomach acid, bile flow, pancreatic? That's the key, where what we're always told to do is what? Take it out of the diet. Now blame the food. I get the pesticide thing. I get the glyphosate thing. But when you digest your food, there's enzymes that we have that can break down glyphosate. Yeah,
I mean, a microbiome, I mean, there's certain bacteria that we know break down these chemicals very well, right? But when we decimate those, then now you're not breaking it down.
There's another cool study. It was done in Arizona and New Mexico, and they went into museums. They had mummies, like old Native Americans that were 1,000 years old, and they measured their microbiome. They figured out a way to do that, and they compared it to us. And the diversity that they had 1,000 years ago was so much more robust than what we have. They literally called that lack of diversity an extinction event, which is why we have to also eat foods that are whole, alive, not sprayed, in season. All these things really help create a more diverse and robust microbiome.
Exactly. And, one of the things that I've taught forever is how to really increase diversity. If it were only so, and by the way, diversity of the microbiome is the key to health, right? I mean, it's the brain works better, the immune system's better. And when we look at all these microbiome tests, a lot of them are very inaccurate, different things, right? You could test it 2 days later, it would look different than it looks today, right? So looking at someone's microbiome and being able to tell them what diet to eat, what you can eat is like, I don't buy into any of it.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. Exactly. And it's because the microbiome can change very rapidly too. So, but diversity is pretty accurate. When you look at someone healthy versus someone not healthy, you see diversity, non-diversity. Like that's the thing that's pretty darn, I mean, even if you find different stuff, they'll carry diversity even with different microbes, right? But how do we increase diversity becomes the question. Many people are under the impression they can just take probiotics to increase diversity. And I'm not against probiotics by any means, but it's not so simple to create this diversity. Diet change, lectins, these stressors that we're talking about. And every time you're forced to change a diet seasonally, purposely, you actually stress the microbiome and you actually cause a diversity. So, for example, if someone goes into a carnivore diet for whatever reason, right? Ancient cultures would go into a carnivore diet because that's all they had, perhaps, right? And certain microbes literally have to raise up to digest all that meat and fat, meaning you have a change in the bacteria in your gut. Oh, and now you have berries and all this stuff, and you found all these new foods, or something happened, the environment changed. Now, all of a sudden, you're eating all this different diet because you have these foods. Guess what happens to your microbiome? It has to massively change. So today, we eat the same 8 foods all the time. You end up monoculturing. Your diversity goes like this.
Yeah.
But the more diet change you have, the more diversity, the healthier you become.
And that's what they found at the Stanford study they did. And they looked at the gut microbiome of a hunter-gatherer tribe. And they produced in the springtime a different set of bugs than they had in the fall.
Of course.
In the spring, it was actinobacteria for getting fat as fuel. In the summer, when all the carbohydrates and starches were being harvested, they had bacteriides, which were delivering sugar as fuel. So in nature, the seasons provide a harvest.
Yeah.
And the harvest is sort of providing us with an antidote to the extreme quality of that season. So in the cold, dry winter months, you get a high protein, high fat nuts and seed diet that the squirrels are eating right now. In the springtime, it's a very austere time. There's nothing coming out of the ground, not much. Some bitter roots. It's a low carbohydrate time of the year. You're going to force the body to burn fat, its own fat, detoxify in the spring. The bugs in the gut change of support and prove that concept. Then come summer, you get the high carbohydrate diet because that's when it's there. It's the nutritional cycle is an annual cycle.
So you just described the 3-season diet,
I did.
right?
3 harvests.
Yeah. I mean, and I would argue fall would be the best time to eat grain, right?
Exactly.
That comes from the ground.
In fact, we started creating our own amylase in the human body about 2 million years ago. More than likely, you start creating an enzyme on your own for starch because you were eating some starch. And today, to this day, you and I make more amylase in the fall than we do in the spring.
That's cool.
Yeah. Very cool. We're seasonal beings. We're circadian beings. We still are, even though we try not to act like them, we still are.
Yeah. That's cool. And like you said, so by this following the seasons, the problem today is that we have refrigerators and we can eat fruit in the winter.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time in human history, whatever this, refrigeration started in the last 100 years, whatever it is, but we can not eat seasonally. And there's a consequence to that. I've said it for many years. So following the seasons is a way to vary your diet, increases your diversity.
Right.
And like you said, you have the very things, I bet you even the sun has something to do with what the body knows, where the sun's positioned, your body knows, because your eyes know it, picks it up, and it'll produce a certain bacteria at certain times, increase that diversity That's amazing, man.
The frequencies of light dramatically change from sunrise to sunset, and they dramatically change from spring all the way around till...
Well, because it's the angle of the light, and your eyes know that.
Yeah.
It knows the season.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't
and
like
just the time of sunlight, the times change. Our body is so smart and so intelligent. We do everything we can to sort of overrule that intelligence.
Yeah, it really is. But it's really hard to eat today in the seasons, because you go in, here you are in January, and you go in and you look at these nice, beautifully ripe fruits, you're going to reach for them. So I sympathize with how hard it is. You go to a restaurant, they're carrying this. I mean, the restaurants aren't changing their food spring, fall, winter. I mean, if you go to a really good restaurant, farm to table, of course they are, but you could still find something on the diet or something on the menu that's not seasonal.
So what Ayurveda did, which I think is really cool, and we have that in the book, is that we have grocery lists that take the foods that have all the winter qualities, like nuts and seeds and soups and stews for the winter, that are on one grocery list. And all you got to do is take that grocery list in the winter, circle the foods on there that you like, and just eat more of those foods in that season. Doesn't mean you have to only eat that.
Yeah, exactly.
You just want to get the right bugs in a medicinal dose for that season. And you can get those grocery lists for free on my website. You can go to lifespot.com and get, it's right at, this says something, there's a banner that says, new here, start here. Click on that. And those grocery lists are right there for you for free. Just download them, take them to the grocery store.
No,
they're really simple.
And that's super helpful. All right. And so again, the 3-season diet. Why 3?
There's 4 seasons. Obviously, people think I didn't quite get that, but there's 3 harvests. There's a spring harvest, a summer harvest, and a fall harvest. And one season is dormant. Nature is always taking a rest. Nature is based on cycles of rest and activity. So there's 3 harvests that we have to interact with. And that's why you do have a spring grocery list, a summer grocery list, and a fall grocery list or a winter grocery list, a spring grocery list.
And it's pretty easy.
List.
I mean, coming out of winter, obviously ancient tribes ate a lot of meat and fat during the winter, right? Because they had to. That's it. Right. They made me some fermented dairies because it lasted through 100%. Winter, right? And then in the spring, obviously very low carb. You might have had a little bit of berries, but berries are low carb fruit, right? It's like, but none of your other fruits were available.
And calorie restriction, because there was nothing.
Calorie restriction. I always say,
that's the time
fasting
to fast.
Spring.
Yeah, exactly.
The culture, right? Who was it? What was the culture? They called it fasting spring, one of the longest living cultures. I'm not pulling the name, a tribe. Anyways, they coined fasting spring because they would come out of winter. They would literally run out of food and fast. So my thing is always training people on fasting is fast at least once a year. Spring is the best time.
Exactly.
Fasting spring.
100%.
So you run out of food. Now you're forcing your body to burn up a lot of the fat, and here you are low carb. Into summer, here come the fruits.
Carbs,
higher carbs, right?
Long days,
enjoy
more energy. You need carbs. Energy is carbs.
Absolutely.
Energy. So that's when you need it.
Enjoy it, right? And then here comes fall. Enjoy the grain. Enjoy the harvest.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's pretty darn easy.
Yeah. And also, what's neat about, like in the summer, at the end of the summer, all the super cooling foods are harvested, like the apples and the watermelons and things that are going to really cool your body down. So at the end of the summer, this is an Ayurvedic concept, the body will build up heat. I don't know if you noticed, but in August, it seems a lot hotter in August and September than it is.
I thought it was hotter.
than it is in June, right? And June is when the solstice happens. So the sun's going south, yet it's still getting hot, getting way hotter in September than in June. So it's called thermal accumulation.
It's our perception of that.
Right. So nature provided foods that will create purgation. Like if you go to apple country, they all go around eating apple pie, apple cider, apple everything, and they have loose stools for the month of October. Yeah. And that purgation gets rid of the heat.
I didn't know this.
Like if a baby has a fever, they get loose bowel movements as well. The body's way of getting rid of heat is to get loose bowel movements. So nature is going to give you a whole bunch of loose stool making foods. That's why the bears are scatting berries all along the trail, because they're eating all this fruit and berries and whatever, and it creates a looser stool, and they're pooping it out. The plant got the seeds spread. That was its goal. But the bear got all that excess heat out of its body. So as it goes into the winter, that hot summer doesn't turn into a dry, because heat dries you out. If you go into winter hot and dry, the winter's going to take care of the heat is going to get better from the cold of winter, but summer's dry and winter's dry. And what accumulates is dryness. Now we're back to the longevity. Our body dries out and hardens up. And how did nature have a plan to the antidote, that tendency to get hard and dry? And when your mucous membranes get dried out, they don't function for an immune event the way they should. You get a cold in the winter. Immunity is compromised in the winter. So these are all like super logical things, but that seasonal food is the antidote. That's the idea.
And here's what we do, right? And sugar season, right? We start with Halloween, which I hate. And here we go. We start eating candy, so we get a little addicted. No, then we go into Thanksgiving, right? And now we're eating all the sugar and all the bad foods. And then we go into Christmas, and now it's all the sugar cookies, right? It's cookie season. And then we go into alcohol season with, but we call it flu season. No, it's sugar season.
Toddy, right?
It's sugar season. And what you're saying is, we're coming out and we're drying up because, we're not eating the right foods to naturally cool us. So it sets us up for even a more bad immunity.
Nature did have a plan, and we're just
fighting it all the time, right? Exactly. So now we have to come in with man's wisdom and take Theraflu.
Yeah.
Or just listen to what God's given us in nature. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about this stuff. And I was just in the grocery store because we were leaving for the weekend, and I was we were getting some groceries for the kids, but my daughter was coming out from college, and we're going through the grocery store, and I was looking at everything. And there wasn't like one aisle in the grocery store that I looked at that I said, that would actually be healthy for you to eat. It was just really surprising that, because I'm not a purist. I eat wheat and dairy and things like that.
I eat wheat too. I do. I mean, I eat Italian wheat. Yeah. I have my restaurants that only get their wheat from Italy, right? It's a better wheat. I wish I could say I only eat wheat in the fall, but I'd be lying. I'm Italian. I kind of like it.
That's the point of this. It's not about all or nothing. Yeah. It's about emphasize.
Yeah, emphasize. I think you make that clear. Yeah, exactly. And that is what I do. I mean, because it starts with a consciousness, of just the recognizing it, and then you'll develop a habit. You do this for one season, watch how your health changes, but it becomes a habit. Diet variation. I'm dealing with sick people typically, right? And we have to increase their diversity. But when you change their diets, it's magic. I mean, it really is for multiple reasons. And then when you follow the seasons, it's even more magical.
Yeah. And you teach them how to breathe. It's game changing.
It's a game changer.
Because no one knows that. I mean, everybody's walking around shallow because the world is stressful and we breathe in a stressful way.
Yeah. Listen, if you don't take that advice, then I don't know why you came here in the first place, because you were meant to be here for a reason. I'm telling you, 5 minutes of breathing a day, I'd do 10. I would do.
Yeah. You can do more.
Yeah. if you're taking walks, you need to be doing the steps. Yeah. 10 breaths,
10 steps for the in,
15 to 20 out, and then the holds. Then after a while, you see how many steps you can hold your breath, increase that, watch what happens, right? The one in the bed, release that, this expanded breathing, release that, right? To release that tension out of your spine and nerve system. Like that's huge. I think you need to do that no matter what. Start your day, or maybe you want to do it before you sleep. In front
of the computer. We're all in front of the computer. And then when you're up in front of your computer,
you do the 10 forward or 10 straight up.
And you can do it while you're working. You can still be reading your email and doing you're right in front of your job. You don't have to take a break from work to do it. You can do it while you're working.
Yeah, make a commitment. 5 minutes a day minimum, but I'm telling you, your life will change. And then try seasonal eating. Honestly, watch what happens, going with the sun, going with the rhythm.
Like I said, you don't have to change your diet.
That's Ayurveda. That's the principle of Ayurveda. In a nutshell.
Just eat more of the foods that are in season in a natural, not pesticide sprayed way, so you can get the bug. You want to get the bugs on your food and the chemistry of the food together in a seasonal way, the best you can.
The bugs. See, this generation, because of COVID, the young generation, I should say, because of COVID, has learned to run from bugs, unfortunately. Bugs are bad. How does it drive you nuts, the alcohol things, when you see people and they do this? I go berserk when I see that, because you're destroying the bugs that are on your hand. Your first line of defense is what you just killed with that 99% alcohol that you just went on your hands. I go nuts. I want to say something to everyone. Yeah. I do videos on it all the time. Stop this right here, and don't train your kids to do it. But COVID caused this.
Yeah.
All the alcohol killing up. I think this younger generation now fears bugs. I get it. It's a natural thing, but we have to retrain our kids that bugs are good. Yeah. Kids that grow up with bacteria on farms, playing in the dirt, barn dust, all of it, are going to have less asthma, allergies, autoimmune, cancer. The list goes on. It's not our opinion. That is absolute fact. We need bacteria. Get it from your food. Get it from playing in the dirt. Get your kids outside.
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, simple principles, but huge principles here. How do they find you? One more time, just how they find you.
My website is lifespa.com. That's LIFESPA.com. And there you'll find about 1,500 articles and videos about the ancient medical wisdom and the modern science together. So you just search up your health concern and can read up. It's all for free, and learn more about how you can take care of yourself, with something that's time tested and has a science. That's a great place for, I think, most folks to start.
Share the show. People are going to thank you when they see this. They're like, thank you so much for sending. I'm telling you, because people's lives are going to change. When people have anxiety, can't sleep, and have pain, in just that 5-minute breathing thing can transform. That's why we started the show. We're ending it there, and even high blood pressure. So share and like the show. See you on the next episode of the Dr. Pompa podcast.